I babysat for the Merricks all through my senior year of high school. They were a nice family, a little old-fashioned, 2 kids, a boy of 6 named Sam and a girl of 8 named Lucy. The pay was good and the kids were easy, and for a while it was the simplest money I ever made. When I first started, Mrs. Merrick sat me down at the kitchen table and went over the usual things, the bedtimes, the allergies, the emergency numbers on the fridge. And then, at the end, in a lighter voice that did not match her eyes, she gave me one more rule. She said, sometimes the children will ask you to play the quiet game. It is a game they made up. You sit in the dark and you stay perfectly silent, and you do not move, and whoever makes a sound first loses. She said, no matter how much they beg, you must always say no. If they ask, tell them the quiet game is not allowed when a babysitter is here. Then turn on every light in the house and put on a movie, something loud. She smiled when she said it, but her hands were folded very tightly on the table. I thought it was a quirk. Some families have strange little rules. For months, it never came up. The kids never mentioned any quiet game, and I forgot about it. Then one night in the winter, late, after I had put them both to bed, Lucy came downstairs. She stood in the doorway of the living room in her nightgown, and Sam was behind her, and they were holding hands, which they never did, and Lucy said, in a voice that was too flat, too even for a child, will you play the quiet game with us? Everything Mrs. Merrick had said came back to me at once, and the tightness of her folded hands, and I remembered the rule. I said no. I said the quiet game is not allowed when I am here. And the children's faces did something I have never forgotten. They did not get upset the way children do when you say no. They just went blank, both at the same time, like 2 lights switching off, and Lucy tilted her head and said, but he is already counting. And then, from upstairs, from the dark second floor where the children had just come from, I heard it. A voice. Low, patient, adult, a man's voice, counting. 3, 4, 5. Slow and even, coming down through the ceiling, from a house that was supposed to have only me and 2 children in it. I did exactly what Mrs. Merrick had told me to do. I turned on every light. I ran through that house hitting every switch, the living room, the kitchen, the hall, and I grabbed the remote and turned the television up as loud as it would go, some late-night talk show blaring, and I pulled both children onto the couch with me into the light and the noise, and I held them there and I did not stop talking. I talked and talked, nonsense, anything, filling every second with sound, because I understood on some level below, thinking that the one thing I could not do, the one thing that would lose the game, was be quiet. The counting stopped somewhere around the time the lights came on. The children sat with me, blinking, and slowly they became themselves again, sleepy and confused, asking why the TV was so loud, why all the lights were on. They did not remember coming downstairs. When Mr. and Mrs. Merrick came home, I was still on the couch with both kids, every light in the house burning, the television roaring. Mrs. Merrick looked at me and looked at the lights, and she did not ask what happened. She just went very still, and then she quietly wrote me a check for triple my usual rate, and she said, "Thank you for saying no." I did not babysit for them again. I could not. But I saw Mrs. Merrick once more years later in a grocery store, and I finally asked her the question I had carried all that time. What was it? Who was counting? She was quiet for a long moment, choosing her words the way you choose your steps on ice. And she said, "It came with the house. It likes the children because children are good at being quiet and still, and it has been trying to finish a game with them since before we moved in. The rule keeps them safe. As long as an adult always says no, as long as someone always makes noise, it cannot get to the end of its count." I asked her what happens if it gets to the end. And she looked at me and she said, "We do not know. No one who has played all the way to the end of the quiet game has ever made a sound again."